Okay, yesterday we were at cost center and we discussed that cost center basically capture the expenses like payroll, commissions, overheads of the departments, and these are then passed on to the finance department, the controlling area. We've already seen how we configure controlling area. We've got a centralized cost center that is 1,000, and then we have a department-wise cost center as well. This cost center can be responsible to calculate payroll differently for every employee, and that can be an employee level cost center to segment the payroll calculation for the employee segments in the company. Persons. Now, persons are people who hold positions within the structure. And this is basically maintained, the person's details are maintained in personnel administration. And what is basically maintained in the administration is personal information, organizational assignment, planned working times, basic pay, addresses, and so on, and their qualifications and their background, the nature of work, their experience, everything actually comes in the personal administration that we'll go and check in a while. So organization and staffing, this is how it is basically constructed, where it's quite similar to making a cost center as well. But here we are maintaining an organizational structure where people are occupying, where people are actually occupying positions, and jobs are basically being defined in the structure, in the organizational structure. Okay. And looking at this, the organizational structure, it can be lean, it can be quite comprehensive, it can be deep, based on the client requirements and their structures that they're maintaining right now. That actually helps in creating positions, and the persons occupying are actually maintained with information about about the backgrounds, and that is being handled by personnel administration, and that is combined with the jobs and positions here. Okay. So relationships, this is very important that you create an organizational unit, that we have already created one that was ad hoc. Okay. And it incorporates positions, and positions have jobs, and jobs are basically occupied, or positions are occupied by a person. Jobs basically define tasks, and the position also defines the task. Why? Because a job is about assistant manager. Now, assistant manager is for the production or the marketing or the sales or operations. And the position is basically, again, it defines the list of tasks, the KPIs, and that task is basically shared with the person working at this level. A work center basically in SAP is related to production side, and the positions are assigned to work centers, and people are managed by positions working at the work center, and that work center is basically very much synonymous with the production department. Now, production department, the manufacturing department actually have work centers, and so do HCM for integration purposes. Okay. Now, these work centers work in collusion in parallel with the cost centers that capture the expenses that I've already mentioned. Okay. So that is how these relationships are basically maintained. We'll go ahead and see, and we'll see how these relationships are maintained. The root object. Now, this comes the tree structure where the root object is basically your basic enterprise unit. That can be the company, that can be a department. Okay, then we actually maintain the relationship between the root object and the object, and this can be a job. And then comes the position, and then comes the person. Okay, this is how the objects are actually laid out using relationships. Now, this root object is managing this object. Okay, just like that we had, it incorporates or it belongs to. Now, this position belongs to this department or this organizational unit. So this belongs to or manages or supervises this object. And this object basically is handling and supervising or is a holder, or it describes, okay, or it describes the nature of this object. And this object is basically, if you look at it, this object, basically the relationship with this object is it can be a holder, or it occupies, or it describes, or it can belong to, okay? So these are various vertical variances of relationships. And some relationships, of course, there are top down, like it's supervising, it's holding, it's describing, like this object is describing this object, and this object is basically supervising or describing or is being held by a person. So the relationship can be top down and it can be a relation bottom up. Now for bottom up, we use the legend A. For top down, we use the legend B. 003 can be the nature of the relationship. Nature of the relationship is supervises, maintains, or describes, or controls, or incorporates. Okay. So 003, of course, the nature actually changes as per the approach. Okay. So this object is basically having a bottom up, for example, the relationship with this object, and that can be like securing this position, and this actually this department actually incorporates this job or this position. Okay. So the structure is not that complex, but yes, it can become complex as the client structure actually grow. And this is where the beauty of HCM actually is laid out, where every company actually comes with its own structure, and SAP has the capacity, the workspace to incorporate all of it. Okay, and that is not actually easy, and that is what makes HCM unique in approaching the business process, because this creation of structure in HCM is business process centric and business process infused, because every process is related with the company and that cannot be changed. So SAP has to incorporate this very structure to work in parallel and depict the true picture of the company. Okay. So this makes HCM quite in demand because of its expert handling of the structures. If you look at it over here, we have administration, then we have personnel, then we have HR department, okay, like cost center, position, or organization. Now the cost center is basically managing a position or is incorporating a position along with the condition of an organization. So it should know that the marketing department has a marketing manager or an assistant marketing manager, and the cost center has to capture the expenses, the salary, the payroll, the taxes from this combination of organization and position. Now, the job basically defines what the person has to do, and the position is then occupied by a person. Okay. Over here, we have object type. Oh, we'll see what these actually mean. It actually defines A and B02. It basically defines the relationship. Let's go and see. If we go and PO, let me just out PO03, PO03. Okay, now this is a job, and let me pull something from this first. 01323, and okay, manager Walmart. Let's see this. Enter. Object is created. Display input type. No relationship is yet created for this one. So we'll actually pull out another one. Okay. Walmart has been created, but the relationships were not maintained. Let's go and check for Target. target manager. Manager is also not maintained for some reason. If we went to best way executive. Okay, display info type. Now this is a job basically, and the job is executive for best way. Okay, PO03. This is basically an object that we have actually maintained. And let's go and check PO13. PO13. Okay. HR manager best way. Okay, we have object display info type. Okay, this is the info type. Info type is basically we maintain various areas, just like I mentioned in personal administration, the qualification, the background, the address, the CNIC number, the ID, driver's license. These are basically part of info types that actually define an object. These are the features, like a feature of a car that is automatic or manual. That's is basically what info types are. Okay. So relationships, display info type. Relationships are maintained over here for HR manager. Okay. Now over here, it belongs to A. A is bottom up, belongs to 03. Manages. Now a department can manage a job, a managed position, but it belongs to organizational unit, which is HR department best way. Okay. So I've already mentioned what is a cost center and what is a cost work center. These basically work together in parallel to create expenses and capture those expenses. Okay. And over here, if you look at this detail of validity, now the validity, of course, can be unlimited because this is basically a relationship that will not expire. Okay, based on the position and the job that we have actually maintained. Okay, and jobs and positions actually don't expire until the company actually expires, and the company, of course, the company don't expire. So these positions also don't expire. So we actually give them a validity date. Okay. And but if you talk about positions, one position can be held between a set date pattern between a set range of date where one position was held by a person, but that again will come down to the person who was holding that position, that job. Okay, so a person directly actually works on a position rather than job. Job is just but a description of what he has to do at that position. Okay, now coming back to our discussion. Now, a company has actually has to settle down and check what are the departments actually doing with their KPIs and what are their SOPs. If you talk about an advertising department, it will have operations, that is sales, and then we have the marketing because advertising has to sell their advertising slots, their advertising units. And these marketing and operations department, they incorporate these positions that defines a person what he has to do. A position is basically defined or it's outlined by a job. So I said this is a theoretical part, which is which you can call as SOP, standard operating practices, which are adopted by position. And this can change. So how it can change? It can change using info types. Now, what are info types? Features. Now, features like a feature of a car, of a building, of a university, of an office, of a person, of a house. The features of a house, like how many rooms and how big is the lounge? These are features. How big is the lawn? Okay, how many doorways or exits? These are features. So these set of features are called info types, and these actually define the position which is held by a person. I hope it's clear now. So this is how we actually create a structure. We'll go ahead and see when we actually go configure these structures in very detail in the lectures ahead. We'll also be making organizational plans. Organizational plans are also difficult, but we'll actually see in the next lecture. And object that I've already shown you, the object is basically maintained. The details of the objects are maintained. We've already seen that, okay? And we have quite a lot of functions for these objects, for these info types. These can be created and these can be having deeper information about the details, what each info type or feature is doing with that job, with that position, with that person, with that department. Okay, that's how we create that. Moving along, let me just end this presentation and bring up another presentation that we have. Okay, personal administration, very important, and will be okay. Share this. Personal administration, and in personal administration, of course, we have many variables again, which are working in collusion in parallel with the organizational management. Okay. There are many modules in SAP that work in collusion in parallel. Okay. And combining HCM data objects and info types and objects. Okay. We have a result set where we are actually planning the personnel and their operations and their performances. Then we have personnel development, training and event management, workflows, compensation, recruitment, and so on. Okay. So this is how an HCM, from HCM's point of view, this is where everything actually comes together and has to be planned in a very synchronized manner, because planning all these objects is not so easy if this is all jumbled up, if this doesn't make any sense, if it is not logically connected. Okay. In section 1, we'll be discussing master data overview, HR company structures, info types, personal actions, features, and integration. Okay. So this will give you a clear picture of what master data is. Master data, as we have already discussed, it's defining the organizational unit, the job, the positions, and the person. A person master data will, of course, have the features. What's their background? What's qualification? What's their previous experience? What's the location? And of course, the ID. Over here, if we talk about employee as a master data is the unique record that identifies a certain employee. Okay. In that collection of info type that becomes master data records, we have details for work schedule, family, tax information, address, organizational management. Okay, personal administration, payroll, recruitment, time, everything is then basically dynamically integrated with all these area in the master data records. Okay. Now, organizational assignment, where is this person working at which location? Address, of course, based on address and tax, based on address, the payroll will be decided as what kind of tax slab will be levied on this employee, because some people will be working remotely, their payment slabs will be different, their tax jurisdiction will be different, their locations will dictate a different tax autonomy. Okay, tax calculation and payroll will actually have to consider the address and the tax information, whether the person is eligible or not. whether the person is a filer or not. And that's how payroll info type will work according to the master data records that we maintain. Now, the family and work schedule is basically, again, related pretty much with the recruitment side, with the time management side, because some people, for example, in oil and gas, people have to work on a rotating basis for like 28 days. They work on the offsite, on the on-site, sorry, and after like 28 days, they travel back for a week or 3 days or 4 days, whatever is decided. And if a company doesn't know how many family members this person has, how many dependent this person has or doesn't have, based on that, the roster will be affected. If a person is single and is working on a 28-day cycle, that cycle can be extended to like 40 days, but on a different payroll level. Okay. So if a person has a family, cannot move out, cannot move on the on-site, can work on the offsite, of course, the nearest office location will be allocated to this very person based on the family details and information the company will be maintaining. Okay, and based on the work schedule will be affected. And that's how the time slots will be allocated to this person. So why do we use master data? Because employees can be working at the corporate office or at the manufacturing unit, and their positioning at each sub area. And these are sub areas, personnel sub areas, corporate office and the factory, right? We've already defined this. So the employee or the new hiring, based on that, the payrolls, the tax slabs, the payments, the rates, the salary payment date, leave management, compensation management will be different. Okay, that's why we maintain master data. So personal actions are basically created by the info types that we will maintain, and we will be creating screens. So info types in SAP's parlance in language will also mean having screens for those info type. For example, address, family members, qualifications, previous experience, that will be a part of personal actions. Okay, personal actions will also have details about promotions, transfers, separations, personal details and official details as well. Okay, HR structures, what a personal area, we've already seen that, was the sub areas, that is corporate office and the factory area. Employee groups, active, retiree, early retirees. Subgroups are contractual and hourly. Okay, we've already seen that. And HR structures. Now, HR structures can be geographical, okay? And we've already seen the personal areas, we've already told you, are geographical. So your company can have multiple geographical areas and presence, like international companies, and that will become personal areas that will have personal, and personal will have employee groups, which are active retiree or early retiree, and subgroups, of course, which are hourly and salaried. Okay. So over here we have client, that is Lawrenceburg. Company code is Lawrenceburg. Personal area is geographical, Jeddah, Kuwait, Karachi. Personal sub area could be corporate or factory, but it can be different. It's not necessary that you don't have a factory, then what will you do? So personal sub area can be defined as per the clients. As per the client's processes, business practices, okay, and could be marketing, HR, and so on. Personal structure, it can be administrative, organizational, I've already told you, okay. These are personal sub areas, okay, and the organizational unit here is a factory where there will be a job, and that will define the position, okay. On the administrative level, of course, it will have a different way of categorizing and segmenting the employees. So personal sub areas are the offices or the departments or the factory area. We've already seen that. And employee groups, active, early retiree, these are employee groups. Broadly speaking, this can be different as well. This is not the benchmark, but it's just a way of understanding that. Okay. Personal subgroups. Now, subgroups can be hourly and salary that we have already maintained, but it can be different as well, like permanent, working journalist, press, clerical, and so on and so forth, contractual salary. Okay. We will have, we will see how payroll areas are defined, and payroll area in area X, in payroll area X and Y will be different. Some payroll areas are paying salaries on the 10th, some payroll areas are paying on the 28th. As I said earlier, oil and gas, they actually pay on 28 for the rosters, the roster program that you're running. The 10th, of course, some companies like in administrative area. So administrative area can have a different payroll area. The factory area can have a different payroll area. Okay. Organizational structure, we've already discussed this. We have the main root object, and that actually manages or incorporates HR and finance as departments and objects. And these departments actually are managing subgroups of sub-departments at their own level. Okay. Then we have jobs. Now, jobs are again set of SOPs, details, features, input types, call it whatever you can. And these jobs actually define the positions may be performed by more than one individual, example, manager, accountant, buyer. These are classifications of positions. Classification is details of position. Now, existing within a company, the job description for one company for a tire manufacturing company will be different from an agri-based chemical company. Okay, the marketing manager for a tire manufacturing will have a different set of job descriptions, and the details, the specifications will be different from that of agriculture-based chemical company. Okay, there will be salespersons, consultants, and accountants in both companies, but their set of rules and engagement and details, job description will be pretty much, those apart will be different. So we'll stop over here for today. We'll continue from here because now we'll actually go into much more details, and these details have to be a bit explained in molecular patterns so that we can have a good understanding, and we'll do that from the next lecture. Thank you very much again. We'll be back again, and thank you very much.